So we're going to slide right into our next session now. We're going to be talking about location-based ad targeting. We've been alluding to this session the entire conference. The opening analyst session we did, I talked about and hit upon a lot of the points that we're going to now drill down on in this session. And I've heard, mobile and location targeting mentioned in almost every session of this entire conference. So now is our opportunity to really give some examples of what we're talking about and best practices and things like that. So Jonathan, come on up. Next we have Jonathan Ewart from Placeable. Okay. So when I'm usually telling people about Placeable with my kind of analyst hat on and putting it in layman's terms, when we're talking about location-based data that is so key to local search and local discovery, you have the endpoints of that data. It almost has a lifespan. The endpoints are the search engines, social networks, directories, and then further upstream you have some of the folks that are cleansing that data and the data handlers, the Yexts of the world. Now, even further upstream at the enterprise level is where you guys sit in working with brands to help them before that data and the place information fans out to all those other sources, making sure it's correct off the bat.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. It's very important to get it right from the beginning.
Right.
Because the farther away you get from the source, it's like a game of telephone, the more distorted the message becomes.
Yeah, right.
So start with the center point of the data, make sure that's perfectly accurate, and do that at scale, which is the tricky part. If you're a mom and pop with one location,
not a problem.
Not very complex. But we managed the location information in a data mart for about 1.5 million locations for our customers. That's a lot of information in about 200 countries and in about 20 languages. So it's quite complex at scale, and that's our real specialty.
So the the multi-location businesses that are a theme of this conference is really your sweet spot. And it's not just getting the information right in a static sense, but it's very fluid. When you talk about ATM closings and this and that, I mean, it's really staying on top of it at that enterprise level, right?
It is, and in fact, we've talked a little bit about online reviews here and mobile optimization. The more dynamic the content is about that location, the better it performs, both for the consumer, but also for the access points on the internet where the consumer engages with that location. So the major portals and the major search engines.
So you guys did a study recently which actually scored a number of different brands, a lot of brands that have multi-location businesses, on measures of kind of visibility, depth, precision, and reach. Now tell us about some of the top scores and what made them top scorers. What are the best practices?
Sure. So in fact, that's the design of the study. It was really a best practices study. And we were able to do it because the software actually did the work.
Right.
So the software took more than 1,000 national brands, North American focused, but more than 1,000 national brands, and put them through the scoring algorithm, which had 4 main drivers, and each of those main drivers has a few sub-drivers. Again, the idea was to share best practices based upon the results, and the results are driven in 4 key areas. Visibility being, can you be found? Are you able to can people find you on the mobile device, for instance? Are you able to, can a consumer actually find where you are? The next is the depth of the content, so when they're engaging with your brand, customer experience begins at Google, right? So when they're there, is the information from there something that's compelling to the consumer to bring them to action? The precision of the information, which is it right? If I'm looking for a location and the store isn't there, I might think it's gone out of business and I might switch to a different brand.
Yep, bad for branding, very bad.
Very, very bad. It's brand safety 101. And then finally, reach. Reach is really important. Consumers go up to a variety of different places on the web and also through their app experiences. Some major proportion of time in-app is spent on 5 apps, dominated by the big players. But there's also other places on the web where they might find information about a business, and you've got to be there too. So how broadly distributed is your information is critically important.
Now, one of the opportunities for the industry, it seems, is that the top score is 78. That's a C+, so there's probably still a lot of work to do, right?
There is a lot of work to do. But and what's interesting isn't so much the top number, it's the comparative numbers within each industry segment. So there were a total of 10 verticals that we studied, and the comparatives within each really are the driving force.
Now, speaking of verticals, restaurants is, of course, a top vertical when we're talking about this subject. subject of multi-location businesses. So we're going to use that here as a representative example. A lot of these lessons apply across other verticals, but here's the example. And you guys did a kind of 5 tips type of thing on a very tactical level. So I want to walk through some of these. The first one is, landing pages for every location. And that's a challenge, of course, but tell us why that's worth it.
Well, obviously, if you're discoverable by the major search engines, and obviously Facebook being one of them, you have to have a presence on the internet for each location. This research, by the way, we did this in addition to the software having done the scoring.
Yep.
We went and did some supplemental research just on the restaurant category. And actually, we presented this earlier this week at the Restaurant Leadership Conference and took the viewers and the attendees there through this. 1 in 4. 1 in 4. So if you've ever been frustrated by not being able to find a Carrabba's or a bowl of soup from Panera when it's raining and you're hungry, principally that's the reason. That information is critically important, particularly in a mobile context.
Yep.
In that category where mobile really drives it.
Yeah, and as things skew mobile, the local intent to find something now near me is actually a greater portion of overall search volume.
And it goes right back to now near me, right? Because if the location of the Panera is wrong, the consumer is not loyal to the brand necessarily, they're loyal to the soup. So they might want to go to a different place.
There you go. So tip number 2, landing page is complete and error-free. That probably sounds obvious, but it looks like a lot of folks aren't doing it.
Still room for improvement. Again, at scale, this becomes very difficult. Hours of operation, open, close, sale items, customer reviews for a different restaurant appearing on your page. All of this it's very complex to manage at scale. You need a very big data management platform and a very big CMS attached right to it.
And based on the increasing granularity of search terms in mobile, having the kind of keyword density of things like menu items, not just overall category of the restaurant.
Correct. It's not just category or brand, it's unbranded search terms, right? Which get right down to pastrami.
Yep. French toast, not French restaurant, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So tip 3, offers and promotions, not just those, but make sure they're current.
Yeah, they have to be current, of course. Again, relevance to the consumer makes the difference. Relevance means, is it near me in place and time, and in terms of my current context? The brand wants to reach consumers in context. Right message, right place, right time equals the right context. And without the right context, the campaigns and the marketing efforts won't be as successful.
So ratings and reviews, you mentioned this earlier, it's very interesting, especially in restaurants, very impactful. But the point here is not just to kind of embrace ratings and reviews, but have that happen on your own domain. We heard El Pollo Loco, yesterday talk about the frustration around the lack of control within Yelp. So to kind of bring that within a controlled environment of your own domain can have some advantages.
It can. In fact, if you don't host your own reviews, if you will, then the opportunity is for the consumer to go find a review and content that you're not in charge of. That might be a competitor's offer, for instance, not necessarily a bad review, but a competitor's offer to try to divert the consumer in that direction. So again, it seems obvious, but a local, highly customized, highly relevant landing page for each location with reviews for that location is critical to success.
And I can understand how there would be some reticence to this on the part of individual businesses or multi-location businesses in that, sometimes if it's going to be a pure kind of unfiltered meritocracy of a review platform, there's going to be some negative stuff on there. You don't necessarily want that on your domain next to your nice marketing pictures, right?
Correct.
So that's probably the holdup.
Like anything else, policy management is important.
Yeah.
But again, it starts with the veracity of the data to begin with. If the data to begin with, at the very core of it, like the atom, there's a statistics term that I've long since forgotten, and it has something to do with the first measurement is the measurement upon which all other measurements are made, and that's the most important one.
Yep.
It gets right back to that core value.
Now, mobile optimization, this is of course a key topic. We're going to spend some time on that. But not just, making sure that the page renders well across devices, but the proper calls to action. Mobile locators, store locators, closest one we talked about in the last session. What are the important things to take away from this?
Right, so this gets right back again to the user experience is increasingly getting to a smaller screen, right? And mobile optimization is a key, it's a key traffic driver and a key value driver for brands increasingly on a go-forward basis. Earlier this week, ComScore just put out some research which really surprised the heck out of me, and that is that mobile commerce is rising at something like 3 times desktop commerce. Again, small as a percentage of overall, particularly in light of offline, but rising very, very, very quickly, and consumers are getting past the security concerns that they might have when they're sitting on an open web network, for instance.
And that's m-commerce on the device for something to be delivered, not driving an offline purchase, right?
Correct.
Correct.
That's correct.
Now, speaking of mobile optimization, what we have kind of looming right now, we should mention another kind of public service announcement. Does anyone know what April 21st is? Call it out. For Google, is that what you're? Yeah. Thank you. Mobile friendly. So it's being called Mobilegeddon. Now Google's been alluding for this for a long time. Years they've been kind of in a carrot mentality, rewarding good behavior in terms of mobile optimization, in terms of search rankings in mobile. And they've announced finally now it's the stick. You're going to be deranked if you don't follow certain protocols. And there's a site you can go to for your current mobile site, see if it passes their test. That's a good kind of thing to know about. What else would you stress about things to do in preparation for that day?
Well, so first, it's actually pretty impactful because Google doesn't typically telegraph an algorithm change.
Yeah, they don't, to the world's dismay, mostly.
So this one's likely to be impactful.
Yeah.
And it points to, it signals, although I have no special knowledge, but it signals that it's likely that Google will have a separate index for mobile.
Yeah.
So that has profound.
That is interesting if they go that far. I mean, any algorithm changes are always very impactful and large. I mean, they don't take those lightly. But a separate index, so that's interesting.
It is interesting. And there's another update that kind of maybe was missed along the way from 2 weeks ago, and it was that they were discouraging static pages or duplicate pages. So if at scale, a large brand wanted to deploy local pages, for instance, for all of their locations, unless they did that in a very dynamic way, that would also sort of come down in terms of the rankings and be, if you will, penalized.
And this is, again, one step along the way of things they've been doing for a while. For example, encouraging deep linking. If you have a link that goes to your home main corporate page instead of what the search actually pertained to, that's a terrible user experience, and they want to derank that to discourage that bad behavior, right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
So actually, that's about all the time we have, but I'll give you the last word for anything you want to leave this audience with.
Yeah, again, it's just this panel this session is about campaigns that work or mobile advertising that's working. I saw something recently that I thought was really impactful, and it references the IoT conversation that you just had. So in about 5 years, there's going to be about 7 billion human beings on the internet in the world, connected to the internet. During that same period of time, there'll be about 50 billion things. So 125 IPs
more
per
inanimate
house.
IP objects than people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the Internet of Things is going to be very interesting from a data management perspective. Again, enterprise out.
Yeah.
And where we all, I think, see complexity with audience targeting I think that complexity gets magnified when you start thinking about things out. One of the interesting things I just saw, and I encourage you to look at it, is an advertising campaign from British Airways called Look Up. Look Up understood the path of the airplane leaving Heathrow Airport as it passed over an electronic billboard.
Uh-huh.
And when flight number 12345 passed over that billboard, the billboard lit up with "Look Up." Above your head is flight 12345 heading to Barcelona. So that's a...
And your cousin Jeffrey is sitting in row 3C.
Well, you could interpret that as the creepy factor. I would maintain that creepy factor exists for old guys like me, but the next generation is going to expect that kind of value.
They're well acclimated in terms of the comfort levels.
And they'll perceive the advertising as a service instead of as an interruption.
Yeah, interesting. Well, that gives us a lot to think about and a lot to talk about, next year and the year after that when we have you back on the stage. So
thank you very much.
Yeah, please join me in thanking Jonathan.